Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. Report of special committees, town officials, and town manager. Joe Walsh, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to let the citizens know that the town's business office will be closed next Monday in observance of Labor Day. Refuse and recycling that day will be collected on Wednesday, and there will be no yard waste next week. Also want to let the citizens know that we have scheduled asphalt repair along Happy Creek Road next week from September 5th through the 8th. We'll have traffic detoured at Wakeland Court and Ewell Street. Please follow detour signs and use caution while driving in the residential area. And that concludes my report tonight.
Thank you, Joe. Next, we'll have a report from Warren County Department of Social Services Assistant Director DeAnna Cheatham. Did I pronounce that right, Cheatham?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. I guess the first thing is there's been a little bit of a change since the agenda came out. I'm actually now the Director of Social Services since Ms. Rose has retired and so effective July 1st. So thank you for having me tonight. I will try not to take up too much time. I have prepared a presentation for you, and you all actually have a copy of that before you. To start off with, I hope I'm not in anybody's ways of taking pictures. I just wanted to draw your attention to at least a portion of our still relatively new building. If you haven't had a chance to come over and see it, please feel free to come over. We'd be happy to do that. I wanted to begin by giving everyone just a brief overview of what our department actually looks like as far as the organizational structure. Maybe a little bit difficult to read up there, but like I said, you do have a copy of it in front of you. Of course, at the top there's the Social Services Director. You can feel free to read through that. When we are fully staffed, we have a total of 48 workers that are at the agency that are broken down in regards to both the administrative staff, family services, benefit programs. And this benefit programs is also what most people know as eligibility. Family services is previously had been referred to as social work, but it's now more encompassing as the title of family services under the Title Protection Act. This is just a little bit of the demographic information so you all will be able to see some of the changes that we have as far as the county is concerned overall. State fiscal year 2015, you'll see that there were 4,289 people that were living in poverty. Between 2015 and 2016, that number decreased just slightly to 4,143 people that were living in poverty. However, the percentage did not change because the raw number was not that large. The number of children actually living in poverty also declined. State fiscal year 2015, there were 1,366 children, and that's people under the age of 18 that were living in poverty. And in state fiscal year 2016, that dropped to 1,313. So not a huge decline, but any decline in that number is a positive. And you'll see that there was just a very small decline in the percent of children living in poverty as far as the percentage from 16% to 15%. But again, that is an improvement. How the Department of Social Services actually serves the community. The first part that I wanted to actually touch on is in regards to benefits or eligibility, which most people know it as. One of the key programs that Social Services provides to people that are living in poverty in the community is our SNAP program, which was formerly known as food stamps. And that SNAP stands shortly for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. I have another slide that you'll be able to see the number of individuals within the city, within the town that actually receive these benefits. SNAP, of course, does actually provide the supplemental food services for our families. There are also other resources in the community as far as food banks that are also able to assist. TANF is what's known as a cash payment that we provide to family members, and it stands for Temporary Assistance to Needy Families. These are for people and individuals, not for individuals, but for family members that have children that qualify and meet certain eligibility requirements. TANF has a maximum cap of 60 months, a 5-year cap on that program to be able to receive cash payments. You're only able to receive those payments for 2 years at a time. So you have 24 months that you're able to receive those payments, and then another 24 months that you're off of the service. The VIEW program, which is the Virginia Initiative for Employment, Not Welfare, runs in conjunction with our TANF program, and the purpose of that program is to help guide our clients towards self-sufficiency. That VIEW program helps to guide the things as far as finding jobs, resume building, interview skills, even training for our clients that need some assistance in finding some additional training, whether it's CNA training, truck driver training, any sort of training like that. Is what the VIEW program is able to assist with. It's able to assist with various things, including providing rent payments if someone's needing to have housing in order to be able to go to work, and able to need transportation. We're able to assist with gas vouchers and at times even purchase vehicles for people. We try to remove the barrier so that people are able to not only just find a job, but to be able to maintain that job and become self-sufficient. So it's more than just receiving a TANF check. Medicaid is one that probably most people are also familiar with. And that includes both our famous and long-term care and age-blind disabled Medicaid. Okay, I'm moving further away. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I didn't want anybody to go deaf because of that screech there. But Medicaid actually is the insurance. Famous Medicaid is for our working families, and so there typically is a small copay. Sometimes there's not a copay. And then, like I said, we also have our long-term care and age-blind disabled Medicaid portions as well. Energy assistance runs periodically throughout the year. There's fuel assistance, which helps with heating during the winter months, as does crisis assistance. Cooling assistance, of course, runs through our summer months. And then there's also child care assistance for anybody that's got children that are receiving child care, trying to work a minimum wage job and trying to also pay for things like rent and child care can actually break the bank because the cost of child care is so expensive. So that is also a benefit. On this screen, you'll see the benefit recipient stats. This is for state fiscal year, and this would be going back from 2012. The one thing I'd like to point out is that you can see where our TANF numbers have declined, going from 718 in 2012 to 508 in 2016. You'll also see where our SNAP numbers, they declined a little bit in 2012, they went up a wee bit in 2013, but have been on a steady decline since 2013. The other side of that is that while our TANF and SNAP numbers have declined, our Medicaid numbers have continued to increase. So it's almost in comparison to the two. We're still seeing where there's a decline in the numbers in most services, but the Medicaid numbers for insurance have increased. The other side of the house, so to speak, when we leave from benefits, is our family services side. This is the side that encompasses child protective services, foster care prevention, crisis emergency intake, adult services, adult protective services, and our resource parents. Child protective services are, of course, those services to assist children that have been abused or neglected. That requires for one of our family services workers to go out and complete either an investigation or a family assessment to check on the safety of the child, ensure the safety and welfare of the child, and for the agency to intervene anytime that may be in question, either through services, which we typically like to do, or in some of the more dire cases where there's not a safe caretaker that may also need removal of the child and placing the child in foster care or with other relatives. That would lead us to our foster care and adoption, which, like I said, goes along with child protective services. We typically try to find either a relative or if the child is able to remain safely in their home, we would work with the family so that the child can be there safe, receiving services. If that's not an option, then foster care is the next move that we try to look forward to. And if the child is unable to remain home, go back home, then adoption is the next option. Prior to even getting to the point of the child coming into foster care, there's also foster care prevention for those cases where we're really intensely working on where it looks like foster care may be inevitable by trying to provide wraparound services, looking for respite, looking for anything that would help keep the child safe and help give the family services so that the child can remain in the home and in the community. Our crisis emergency intake involves things, it could be things like electric bill, utility bill payments, it could be rental payments, it could be medication. Those are services that we're able to provide on a very limited basis, of course, because of funding, and they are things that are definitely a crisis or an emergency, not just because of poor planning or poor budgeting. Our adult services and adult protective services, they run in line with our adults, and there's another slide that we'll discuss a little bit further, but they run in line with our adults that are 60 or older or 18 and above if they have a documented disability. These are for people that we're able to assist with if they need someone to come in the home and be able to assist them with some of their ADLs, activities of daily living. If there's someone that they've been abused or neglected, would fall under our adult protective services measures. And finally, on this slide, our resource parents, they were commonly referred to as foster parents. The state changed the term a little bit ago. So now they're resource parents, but they're the parents that we train and try and place our foster children with in the local area. The child welfare stat slide that we have here is some of the information I really wanted to share to put a name in the face, so to speak, with the numbers and the families that we're actually working with in the community. These are our neighbors, these are our church parishioners, these are the people that we're seeing every day. All of this is from state fiscal year 2016. So the total number of child protective services referral that the agency took were 623. That was the total number of children that were involved in our report, 623. And that's 623 children from right here in Warren County. Not in the state, not in Frederick County, that's Warren County children. That of those children, 170 of those children were children under the age of 4. And what makes that number so very daunting is that they are typically the children that aren't seen. They're the children that are not in school. They're the children that may or may not be going to daycare. So this is one of the most vulnerable populations, are those children that are under 4. If we look at the rest of that slide, there's 254 children that were 4 to 11 years of age, 128 that were 12 to 17, and then where it says unknown, we do find out what the ages of the children are. However, at the time of the call, the person that was calling in may not have known the exact age of the child, but knew that they were a child. Just wanted to give you a little bit more of an understanding as to the breakdown of what these cases actually look like in Warren County. So 56 of the cases that we have involved, and this is actually as of August 24th. So this is one of the most updated stats. 56 of the cases were for physical neglect. Physical neglect can include inadequate supervision, inadequate housing, inadequate food. 30 of those cases were for physical abuse, and that's exactly as it sounds, for children that have received injuries due to being physically disciplined. 7 of those cases were for sexual abuse. 6 of those cases were for mental abuse, and 2 of those cases were for medical neglect. Now, while the number of cases might not seem like they're in the triple digits or double digits or any digits, that's not including the number of clients. The total number of clients just in July that workers saw in regards to family assessments and investigations were 322 clients. 322 clients that were in Warren County. Of course, with the substance abuse epidemic that is currently plaguing the entire country, I would be remiss if I did not bring this to the attention of council. The substance abuse referrals, the referrals that we received, of all of the referrals that we received, 37 of those cases had indications where substance abuse was involved. That could have been alcohol, that could have been drug, it could have been prescription, it could have been all three. That's 37 cases. That's not including the number of children. That's not including the number of other caretakers that were involved. That's everything, like I said, from prescription drugs to heroin to crack cocaine to marijuana. So that epidemic is not someplace else. It's here in Warren County, and it's affecting everyone. It's not one particular demographic or one particular race. It's affecting everyone. Our foster care numbers, currently the agency has 14 children that are in foster care, and we have, sadly, only 3 approved foster homes in Warren County. Now, what that means is that of the total number of children that are in care of Warren County Department of Social Services, 11 of those children are placed outside of Warren County. The problem that creates is that the agency is tasked with trying to return these children home. Right now, these children could be placed in any place from Richmond. They could be placed in Culpeper. They could be placed any place across the state where we can find a foster home that's able to take these children. And typically, we try to keep sibling groups together. But with the small number of foster homes that we have in Warren County, oftentimes, as you can see, their children are not able to remain in Warren County. So not only do they lose their family, they're losing their community. They're losing everything that they're used to. Oftentimes, they're losing a change of scenery from mountains to flat land or oceans. So it's a very traumatic experience, not just coming into care, but then coming into care in an area that there's absolutely nothing familiar to you. The faces don't look like you, the people don't look like you, the places don't look like you, the restaurants don't look like you. It's a very traumatizing event for children to have to come into care and then have to leave the area. As far as foster care prevention cases and our support cases, the foster care prevention, like I mentioned earlier, are those cases where we try to do everything we can to keep that child from coming into care. The support cases are for people that are kind of in the middle. They could go one way or the other, and it could go very bad very quickly. We try to provide support for them. Sometimes it's in the matter of doing parenting classes. Sometimes it's in the matter of funding to try and keep the family safe. We have 32 of those cases, and again, that is from August. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and as it says here, you'll see, I think this year was one of the first years that maybe Warren County Social Services put the pinwheels around in the county. So you will see those again next August, so feel free to pick from our pinwheel garden to show your support for child abuse prevention during the month of April. And as the old proverb says, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. One of the newest things is in straight off the hot off the press, as of August 23rd, so this past Wednesday, the state has partnered with Baby Box University to help provide safe sleeping boxes, is basically what it is, for infants. What we found is that the number of child fatalities in the state, a high number of those are because of unsafe sleep practices. And even in Warren County in the last, say, 18 months, there have been 3 children that have died because of unsafe sleep practices, and that's 3 children too many. This baby box that you see here, that's one of the pictures that we actually put together today, and we actually are going to give away one of the baby boxes today. It's for babies that will be able to sleep in kind of straight home from the hospital. It's not meant to be a long-term placement, but it's so that children will not be rolled over and smothered, that they're not cohabitating, that we don't have these child fatalities. This is a free service. There's no eligibility requirements. You do not have to live in Warren County. Warren County Social Services was the second social service agency in the state to sign on as a distribution center. Adult services and adult protective services, like I explained a few moments ago. Adult is any person that's 60 years of age or older, or 18 years of age or older who is incapacitated. We have certain mandatory services that the agency has to provide. That includes APS, which is our adult protective services, home-based care, pre-admission screening. Our pre-admission screening, you may have heard of them for people that are needing to go into long-term care, or they might need an assistant to come in and help with their activities of daily living, and guardianship reviews. Here's some more statistics for you so that you have an idea as to the population that the county is serving. There were 126 reports of adult protective services as of July 2017. So this is, again, one of the most vulnerable populations that we have in the county. 34% of those investigations were substantiated. So about a third of those investigations were substantiated. And if you look at the bar graph, the most that we had was physical neglect. But sadly, second to physical neglect, we had actual financial exploitation. And what that means is there are people that are actually going out and they are using the money of our seniors. And they're using the money not to serve our seniors, not to help our seniors, not to provide for our seniors, but for their own ill will. And that can range in the thousands and thousands of dollars. As far as the cases that Warren County Department of Social Services have had active for state fiscal year 2017, so far, and this is for last year, we've had 470 adult service cases, and again, that's in the county. These are your neighbors, these are your coworkers, these are your parents, these are the people that we're serving in the community. And the greater portion of those were those adult services. If you will see this particular slide, and again, it's a little clearer in your all's handouts, but the majority of the adult protective services complaints are all within the front royal town, from the town of Front Royal. There are others that are up in the mountains, but the majority of them are in the town. So what does all of this mean? Well, several things. And a lot of times we start looking at numbers and how much is this costing. And that's what this one stop shows. And I won't go over all of the thousands and thousands of dollars. The one thing that I really wanted to point out in this slide is for the total number of all the services that are provided within this county. You'll see that there's $54,023,750 is the cost of all of the services for state fiscal year 2016. However, the county's portion of that was only $1,760,038. So if it says more bang for your buck, there's an awful lot of money that's coming from federal and state money, which is a good thing, and not having to come from the county to be able to fund some of these services for not just our most vulnerable clients, but for the staff that's also involved. So, how can you help? Oftentimes, when I'm doing presentations like this, the information is upsetting. You're seeing things that you may not want to see because everything is not, rainbows and dolphins, so to speak. And how can you help? How can you help within the community? How can you help the most vulnerable that we have? How can you help the seniors? How can you help the children? First thing is become a foster parent. We are in dire need. We're at a critical level, not just in the county, but across the state for needing foster parents. Anything that you can do to be a foster parent, to be a respite parent, even if you would just like more information, if you've ever thought about it, please reach out to the community, reach out to my workers. We'd be more than happy to shed some more light on it. The other thing that you can do is if you see something, say something. If something doesn't seem exactly right, nobody's asking for you to go and knock on the door and do your own investigation and remove a child. If something doesn't seem exactly right, you can call and make an anonymous complaint and say, this is what I've seen, and then we can decide whether or not it should be looked into or not looked into, if there's enough information, if that family needs any assistance before the situation turns dire. Third, spread the word about new initiatives. The baby box is the newest thing, not even a week old. Spread the word. If you have somebody that you know is pregnant, if you have somebody in your congregation, you have somebody at your workplace, you see somebody in the community, let them know. Babies are expensive. I understand that. Babies are tremendously expensive. But this is something that can help you before you're able to afford to get a bassinet or afford to get a crib, but also keep your child safe. I don't ever want to have to bury another child because of an unsafe sleep practice. Lastly, volunteer in the community. I can't say enough about volunteering. It's something that's needed every day, everywhere. Even now, we've got the floods that are going on in Texas. That can happen anywhere. We don't need to have a catastrophe to be able to go out and to help your friends, to help your family, to help your neighbors. Volunteer is part of what I enjoy doing, is volunteering in the community and reaching out all the time. Last slide is, of course, my contact information. If you have any questions, comments, want any more information on anything, I'd be more than happy to come out and share that information with you.
Before you go, I have a couple questions. Going back to one of the last slides, the 54 million that we spend in regards to, we spend in Warren County. Is that a high number for Warren County, or is that pretty much substantiated throughout the state?
Actually, in regards to the county, it's running about the same. It's really interesting when you look at the amount of money that's put in from local money as to how much money actually comes back, because that money also includes, like when we're talking about Medicaid, that money includes the amount of money that's coming back to Valley Health because people are coming to Valley Health and using Valley Health.
Okay, so
with other localities this size.
yeah. And going back to, I believe, the first or second slide, you had over 4,000 people that you serve. That's actually in the welfare program per se.
And
that's about 18% of the county and the town combined. Is that correct?
that would be correct. And I believe that slide, if I'm thinking about what you're talking about, that's the number of people that are living in poverty, 4,200 and some odd. Is that the slide you're speaking of? That's the number of people in Warren County that are living in poverty. So that might not, every one of those people may not be receiving benefits, but those are clients that would be eligible for benefits.
Eligible, okay. And then going back to the last one on the child protection, you had 623. Give me a little update on child protection. I know what it is, but how do you all view that as far as the social services?
Okay, so as far as child protective services is considered, I know at one point in time people thought that you could not discipline your children, you could not beat your children. That's not what that's saying, that you cannot discipline your children. You absolutely can discipline your children, but there's a difference between discipline and abuse. So when we're looking at child protective services, and we talked a little bit about it, physical abuse is just one of the caveats of what could potentially be an abuse or neglect allegation. There's also that physical neglect piece where it's not just living in poverty and not being able to provide the basics. It's not providing the supervision. Having a 2-year-old that's out at 3 o'clock in the morning is a lack of supervision. Having a child that needs medical care and you have the means to be able to provide that medical care and yet still don't provide it, and the child goes into, say, a sickle cell crisis, that's medical neglect. So Virginia Code outlines specific areas as to what constitutes child abuse or neglect. And it's not just a matter of well, I think this is the way this family should live. If the family doesn't have the ability to live in that way in a three-bedroom cul-de-sac, then it's making sure the child is safe. It all comes back to the safety of the child.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Berry, did you also correct the assistant, I stand to be corrected?
I did,
And
yes.
Director. Congratulations.
Thank you.